Welcome back. Here we are. Evinrude goes tits up, part cuatro. We got 4 of these things. The 5th, there is a part 5, but it's a special. Just the VP of BRP is going to see this one because it's where the money gets real. All right, Evinrude goes tits up, part 4. If you remember part 3, we discussed the difference between the dealers and the factory. Dealers couldn't be more helpful. They're really only limited by what the factory allows them to do, which in most cases is not much. Even when the factory has the knowledge of problems and the dealer has the knowledge of problems, the factory will not allow the dealer, for example, to replace a muffler that they know is under recall. They won't do it. So now here in February, this infamous motor is at a shop in Florida. Spent another $3,500 to ship it both ways. So we're well over 10,000, 13, 14, who knows. I would imagine by the time this motor gets back on the boat, I'll have as much money into trying to fix it as a new motor costs. Unbelievable as it sounds, that's just where we are. I stopped thinking about the dollars a long time ago. And now I just want to inform people. So we're down here. This segment again will highlight the difference between the attitude of the dealer versus the company it represents. This service manager that I got, this young kid's a rock star. He's young, doesn't have tremendous experience, but he's really smart, got a can-do attitude. He was ready to solve all the problems properly in less than 10 minutes, talking on the phone when the motor was still down in Exuma, just by listening to the history of the motor, what happened over in Nassau, and the process. Of course, there was just one obstacle. You can probably guess. Yeah, Evinrude itself. His early solution was to just send me a fully dressed power head. Since the factory techs via Nassau could neither diagnose the problem nor solve them. You know, imagine that. Let's just fix it, right? You know, that's what happened to the guy in North Carolina. The company stepped up and just sent him a new motor, right? He didn't have 1/100th of the issues that I have. But of course, I didn't make a video for 7 months. And so I'm a little behind the curve, both in dollars and I guess common sense on my part. But in the end, we'll see how it turns out. Instead, they insisted I ship the motor, which I did. In the end, this decision is going to cost them dearly. It was probably the last example of what I call obstructive stupidity that will probably put this case in the courtroom. So we move on. The motor shows up in a box, no controls, and let's really enjoy this scenario, folks. Remember, this is a super technologically advanced motor, right? And so it shows up in this box. They stick it in a tank. They try to put a bunch of controls to it, you know, unpack the motor. They start it up, and it runs fine. It's technology right here, and sometimes it works. So now what do? Well, let's see. They start examining this bevy of computer codes. This thing has more issues than a transvestite in church. So they take a final analysis, take a number of days to formulate a theory. I say, yes, a theory. It's a theory because we all agree that this motor doesn't get further from shore than I'm willing to swim. It goes in order like this. Number one, they're positive that the number 3 cylinder has only fired about 5 hours out of the total 105 hours of the motor's existence. That's impressive, isn't it? The butt splice wire, this is number 2, the butt splice wire never was the cause of the miss, nor was the spark plug. Okay, good. The motor has an ever-recurring knock code. There's that beautiful technology again, isn't it? Okay. The number 3 cylinder gets hot. number 3 cylinder. The muffler should have been replaced in Nassau, but then everybody knew this. There's a frickin' recall on it. Motor runs warm, even at idle. Okay? So let's look at the corrective steps taken. One of the funniest things that happened, and I still laugh when I think about it, the customer service manager calls me and says, "Hey Frank, I need a picture of the back of the boat." This is when they had no answers about nothing. And I said, "Not a problem, man." I said, "I'll get it. I can get it for you. Let me call Captain Sugar." I said, "But just so we can have some fun with this, tell me what we're looking for so that, you know, he can have a laugh too." And he said, "You better sit down." I said, "I am sitting down. I'm driving." And he said, "Do you have a swim ladder on your boat?" And I said, "I got a damn nice swim ladder on my boat. I spent about $800 getting it repowder coated, and we reworked it so that when it locks into place, it's absolutely solid. No vibration, no nothing." And he said, "Are you sure about that?" And I said, "I'm positive." I said, "But I'll get you your pictures anyway." So I get pictures of the boat, front, back, forward, looking at all the transom, send it back, and he calls me back and says, "Okay, the factory, the gurus at the factory have thrown out this theory because, of course, it's." And I said, "What theory are you talking about?" And he said, "They thought that the ladder was vibrating and setting off the knock code in the motor." And of course, I start laughing, and I said, "Do you realize how funny that is?" And I said, "What's the first thing you notice about the picture of the boat?" And he said, "Well, the ladder, of course, is on the port side, and there's a port motor right next to it. And why wouldn't that motor be getting a knock codes?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And I said, "So let's think about it further. If a ladder can set off a knock code on a motor, what makes you think that a beer bottle can't laying in the transom? Or what makes you think that a fishing weight can't set it off? What makes you think that 1,000 different things can't technologically fool this motor into shutting itself down?" Yeah, there I am out in 20-foot seas. There's a beer bottle rolling around in my frickin' transom, and it shuts my motor down because my motor is so technologically advanced that it has knock sensors. Okay, yeah, that's your technologically advanced motor. So what do they do to solve this? Okay, so the issue is they're trying to figure out why is the number 3 cylinder shutting down? Okay, so I'll tell you. The motor was heating up, the cylinder was getting hot, it was getting a knock code because it got hot. Not because there was a knock, it was actually working in the reverse order. Technology was fighting against itself. So what they did, on my motor's behalf, they updated the software regarding the knock sensor. That's right, they changed technology based on my motor. They had motors that were set off for several different reasons before. They thought they had an easy fix. Didn't work. So we updated the knock sensor software. We updated the muffler to a new style. We removed and replaced a water valve. Turns out there's a valve that when the motor hits 4,000 RPMs or around there, this valve opens up, dumps in additional cooling water. We did have one code showing that didn't work. However, when the motor was being tested, the codes did not show up. Again, it's technology, sometimes it works. They stick it in the tank, they run it, and they can see that it's not opening up. No code for it, right? No fancy technology. They can see it with their eye. It's not opening up, okay? So they remove and replace it. They decided to remove and replace the water pump. The thermostat, remove and replace the thermostat, new gaskets. Here's a big one. This is substantial. We get to a situation where the customer service manager says, Frank, I have to tell you to install something on your other motor. And I said, I said, whatever it is, it's not enough. I said, I'm not going to put in some Band-Aid on my second motor and think that it's safe, because it's not. And he said, well, let me tell you what it is. He said, we've added high flow water pickups to your engine because we believe you're picking up aerated water. And I said, really? You mean as in the kind when I go over ocean sea foam? You mean that kind? Like when I'm in crashing waves, that kind? That kind of stuff? And he said, well, I never thought of it that way. And he said, well, they're talking about, he said, look at the picture. So I pick up the picture, and he said, do you see where your transducer is? And I said, I do. And he said, they think that transducer, that little maybe 3-inch by 4-inch, is creating aeration in the water and causing a cooling problem. And I said, how long have these guys been around boats? And he laughed, and he said, that's a ridiculous question. And I said, it's not to me. And I said, what kind of boat do I have? And he said, oh, you have a really nice Intrepid. And I said, yeah. I said, what about the bottom of an Intrepid? What makes the boat so fast? And he said, it's got a stepped hull. And I said, yeah, the hull introduces air to reduce the drag. It's an Intrepid. And he said, oh my God. He said, don't these guys know that? And I said, hey, they're your people. Why don't you explain it to them? And so he goes back to him, and he says, hey, by the way, guys, look at the picture at the side of the boat. You can see the step in the hull. And he explains to him what I told him. And they said, oh, well, we've heard of this before. And in those cases, we're supposed to mount the motors lower on the transom to get rid of that. And I said, okay, so let's go backwards to my customer service manager. And I said, are you telling me that the motors are also rigged wrong? And he said, well, we think, emphasis on think, it's another theory, we think that the water pickups will solve the problem. I said, so what you're telling me is we're going to pick up more aerated water. And he says, well, you sure make it sound silly. And I said, it is silly. If the problem is aerated water, what good is more aerated water going to do? I said, do you see now why your technological geniuses can't see the forest for the trees? I said, so why don't you guys do a little more research and figure out if the boat was rigged correctly? Because you got to look, this was done by an Evinrude dealer, blah, 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 a year ago. It's not like it was done, 5, 6, 10 years ago. This was all done recently. So let's figure out what's really happening. Okay, so remember, those are all theories. And now for everybody that owns an Evinrude, this is the really scary part. This is the part that's going to kill somebody. Remember back when I said that the guy in Nassau told me these motor had reed valve issues? Well, here's what he was talking about. Turns out that these guys at the factory instruct my guy, hey, we want you to, when nobody's looking, go into the induction side of this motor and check the reed valves, because maybe that's why it's not running right. And what do you think they find? Yeah, 2 of the reed valves are falling off. Number 3, number 5. So how many turns of the screw left before the thing fell off, right? Reed valves fall off, ingest in the motor. You don't even have a motor anymore. It detonates. So the guy in Nassau probably saved my life when he told me, don't take this boat back across the ocean. That bit about, having issues meant they were about to fall off. Think about that the next time you're in your boat. Do I believe that what they've done here solves the problem? Seriously? Again, the number of issues that we've already dealt with that were theoretical fixes, all these types of things. This boat's not even qualified to be in the R&D stage. Honestly, it's not even ready to go out and test for 500 hours, right? Much less go back and believe in the motors, you know. Consider that this is a brand new motor, that these issues occurred at 32 hours total time on the motor, right? Brand new motor. Consider that the engineers at Evinrude thought the swim ladder was causing vibration, thus engaging the knock code sensor, or beer bottles, or fishing weights, or any number of 1,000 things that can set this motor to shut itself down. I'm not a bass boat. I'm not going across a lake. I'm not skiing. I'm not pulling an inner tube. I'm 50 to 100 miles offshore. I'm running between Cat Island, Exuma, San Salvador. Hell, I tried to originally carry 15 to 20 people 100 miles a day on a tour, right? And I'm supposed to have a boat the motor will shut itself down if there's a beer bottle rattling around or the ladder is shaking. It's dangerous. It's irresponsible at best. Confidence in these motors? Forget about it. And just think, I don't have one. I have 2 of these damn things. I wonder when the reeds are going to fall off the second motor. And that brings us to the end of part 4. Thank you. Again, have a great day. Hope you're enjoying the show. This is factual stuff, ladies and gentlemen. If you own an Evinrude, you got these same issues. It's called reed valves. Very dangerous. Don't put yourself in a position where it can hurt you. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Any questions? This will all be posted, of course. We'll have a response section where you can respond to us. I know there's guys out there there are paid shills that write for Evinrude. What's this guy's name? Blue Water, Brown Water Bill or something. Anyway, there's all kinds of these guys that spend every day writing about this stuff. I don't have time. I run 2 or 3 businesses. This is just my effort to try to keep people out of trouble. And so, if you want to respond, you have something intelligent to say, I'd like to hear it. I'm not interested in you telling me what your opinion is because I'm living it. It's not my opinion, it's fact. Thank you. I appreciate it.